Hi, ranchers. 2 weeks ago, we heard about worry, what it is, and why we do it. And we left our discussion with the question of if it's so unproductive, and it's usually irrational, why do we have this crazy habit in the first place? And then today, we find ourselves in a national health emergency with all North Dakota schools closed. I want to make sure that I do distinguish again between what we would call constructive worry. In other words, we have a national emergency that we should be worried about, and we should be looking at plans to work around and to work through this crisis. Because worry is not inherently bad when it can, in fact, be part of how we're wired as human beings. It's part of our survival. But remember, we distinguish the worry of, and that worried mind of that nagging, ruminating on all things, and what ifs and what ifs and what ifs. And we even heard about half of the time, the majority of the things that we worry about never come true anyway. And yet, a worried mind disrupts our daily living and definitely would disrupt a mindful lifestyle. So one of the answers that were offered by psychologists is that worry acts as a buffer against more intense negative emotions. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but here's how it works. Imagine you're going to give a speech in front of a really large audience. And in the hours before the event, you start to feel that fear that you might experience once you walk on stage. So you start to worry. Now realize you're not on stage yet. You're just thinking about walking on stage. And while all of this worry isn't pleasant, it is a way to get you geared up for this future state of discomfort. So worry, in other words, is like a negative emotional warm-up routine. It's how your mind and body prepares for even greater fear and unease. For some people, it just might be a sense of nervousness, wanting to make sure you do the right thing before you did that speech. But for others, it can be crippling in that you just get so fearful and worried about what may happen that you might not even be able to deliver the speech. So this kind of preparation worry, well, it can even have an upside. Researchers at UC Riverside have shown that worry can both motivate us and serve at the same time as an emotional buffer. You know, your worry about that speech, for example, well, it might motivate you to practice more. Practice over and over again, leaving you better prepared for that big moment when you walk on the stage. Your worries about that speech also set up a largely positive and pleasurable experience that comes once the wait is finally over and you deliver the speech. The discomfort that comes with worry, in other words, it can bring you down, which makes the euphoric experience of successfully delivering that dreaded speech all the more pleasurable. So, okay. Here's the big news about the two science-backed ways to ease a worried mind. And as I had mentioned, this is right off the press. It's new information, new research. So given that many of us are wired to worry, and trying to get rid of or overcome worry is both unrealistic and counterproductive. If we are wired, then trying to get rid of it, well, that doesn't make sense. That craving to get rid of worry, to eradicate it absolutely and once and for all, that can only amplify the suffering that comes from those looping thoughts, whether we like it or not. See, the science of worry, or in other words, what's happening upstairs in our brain, by contrast, offers a more skillful approach. Researchers say don't try to get rid of worry. See if you can transform it instead. Recent research out of Case Western University points to two powerful mindful living or mindfulness-based tools for doing just that. First is what they call mindful worrying. The first approach is to bring mindful attention to worrying. Acknowledge it, recognize it. The key to this practice is what they call a notice, shift, rewire. So that first step is you notice it. You notice your mind has slipped into sort of that ruminating, seductive state. So once you notice, then you can shift your mind state by bringing your attention to the worry itself. It's a shift from an inversion, not liking this, this is bad, to that curiosity piece we've talked about before, investigating, from fighting and trying to figure out why we're worrying, to just notice in the present moment, I am. So after we notice and we shift, then the next piece of this is to rewire. 15 seconds, quick, to stay with and just savor the fact that you had a shift in perception. Research shows that this really simple shift leads to the experience of what they call decentering. What I would say is just experiencing a slightly different identification with your worried mind. Instead of letting the worry totally encompass you, you're almost looking at it as if you're looking at it from afar and saying, yep, it's here. And they're saying that this subtle sense of space between you and worry helps release that grip that worry can have, creating that worried mind and worried thoughts that start to ruminate and go round and round, keeping you up at night. Instead, you kind of are watching them come and go from a place of greater peacefulness and ease. The second thing, and this has been written about in many, many, many journals, not just about worry, but about stress, about pain, about depression, is practicing gratitude. So much is being written about just the practice of gratitude and how it can really change and shift what's going on in our minds and our thoughts. It's a practice of gratitude. It's not just saying, I'm going to be grateful. But unlike mindful worrying, this technique involves a more active response. We're not just looking at it and acknowledging that worry's here. At its core, I would say that this practice notices when you're caught in worry, and then shifts by bringing your attention to some present moment source of joy or gratitude. So we're not just taking a look and shifting to being more present and realizing we're worrying. It's actually now bringing in the source of joy or gratitude. So let's say you're worried about a difficult day ahead, and you're noticing some worried thoughts. So you shift your attention to what you're grateful for right now. If I wake up and I'm worried about the day, I could say, I'm grateful right now for the light in the morning and the fact that it makes me feel ready to have a joyful day. I'm grateful for my delicious breakfast, the taste of my beverage, my latte. It's recognizing right now, what am I grateful for? Not later, not at night when you're looking at your day, but right now when worry starts to, I almost said worry starts to worry you. Worry starts to come to mind. So you kind of rewire by savoring that gratitude for a few seconds. It's not enough, and our brain won't rewire if we just go, yeah, I'm grateful for this, 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 this. We need to savor that, because you see, we are in one way savoring our worry, ruminating on it, focusing on it, spending time with it. We need to do the same about gratitude and joy, spending some time with it, even if it's just a few seconds. Research shows that both of these practices are really powerful salves or balms for a worried mind. So whichever practice you pursue, it's worth remembering that the key is awareness. If you want to use that notice, shift, rewire, and integrating that into the practice of your daily life, or being grateful when you feel worry starting to approach and starting to take over, being grateful, savoring gratitude, savoring joy, and seeing the effect that it may have in a positive way on your worry. Again, remember, it's not a silver bullet. neither one of these things, even though research has found that they are practical and they work, no change happens overnight. We're talking about rewiring our brain, folks. And I never want to present in Mindfulness with Marsha that I've got all the answers and I know everything. Remember, there's hundreds of research publications out there just on worry. So if you want to do that, you can Google and find some more ideas. Mindfulness with Marsh is just a place to begin the curiosity, as they were talking about researchers, that investigation. Is there something else we can do in dealing with worry? And again, the reason, because we want to live a more mindful lifestyle. So this week, pause and consider what your steps may be in the area of worry. Perhaps worry does not really derail your life much. And this has just been a nice introduction and a reminder of what to pay attention to. If, however, you are spending nights awake, or it's really worrying sometimes gets in the way of relationships or your mood, then you might want to investigate some more possible lifestyle changes and ways to deal with worry. In light of COVID-19 and school closures and social distancing, I think now more than ever until next week, please be gentle with yourself. And not only remember for your own self-care, but also to remind those loved ones and people around you for self-care. And finally, of course, be well.